So it should almost be ready here. That cat is so cute.
Hey guys.
Hey guys, I think we're live actually.
Yes, we are.
So I'll get rid of the cat there who was creeping on screen. Hello everybody who's tuning in to another fantastic Tech Hub Tech Talk. My name is Joe Russo. I am the president and CEO of Tech Hub South Florida, formerly Palm Beach Tech. I'm joined here by our illustrious membership and inclusion specialist, Monica Rojas, who you probably met right beforehand. And we're going to get kicked off here today. Monica, is there anything else you'd like to say before we dive into the quick intro presentation?
No, basically just welcome. And I'm excited for today's talk. Thanks, Jerry.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to be on today with Dr. Jerald Dawkins, who's the founder and chief information security officer at True Digital Security, and the CEO, Rory, is also here with us. But before we dive into the chat, which is cybersecurity is a team sport, we're going to give a quick introduction onto what we are all doing here today, and featured first with our sponsor from Carey Stamp & Company. I believe, Ryan, you have the floor for about a minute, sir, if you're on here. There you are.
Yeah, I'm here. And thanks, Joe. And I am happy to be here, and we really appreciate our partnership with South Florida Tech Hub. But anyway, so my name is Ryan Swenson. I'm a financial analyst with Carey Stamp & Company, and we're a local boutique financial firm located in Tequesta, Florida. I'm really happy and proud to announce, actually, we were just recently awarded Forbes Best in-State Wealth Advisors, and we were Best of Palm Beach County Award by the Post of 2020. So really excited about that. But kind of more back to the business side, we work with individuals, families, multi-generational families, that is, businesses and business owners, and more specifically speaking, tech owners. So, and what we do is we focus on what's most important to our clients and take a holistic approach to build that custom tailored strategy with everything from retirement planning, insurance needs, tax strategies, college savings funds, to estate planning services. So we do a lot for our clients, and you can see we do a lot of different work and a lot of different goals. So if your business is mature and booming, or if you're in the startup accumulation phase, we are here to help in any possible way. But thank you for having us again, and back to you, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. And for those that don't know, Carey Stamp is a great supporter of our organization, and is also part of FAU Tech Runway with their tech startup as well, which we were talking about a little earlier. So thank you guys so much for taking part. A little bit more about what we do. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to build South Florida into a tech hub. We have a community created as well that says that we are wholeheartedly committed to building a welcoming, collaborative, and inclusive community for all. You can find more about that on our website. And a little bit about us. We are a 501c6 nonprofit organization. We have over 200 corporate members and community partners, as well as tens of thousands of technology professionals that we actually work with and support as our constituents throughout South Florida. We actually did a study in the last couple months, and that came up with 77,000 hard-skilled tech professionals here in South Florida that we actually have the privilege and the honor to help support. In addition to that, here are some of the amazing companies that we get to work with. On the regular, I mean, some big ones, some small ones, and everybody in between. So huge thanks to all of our supporters there. And if you would like to become a member, like True Digital Security or any of our other major awesome people that we have work with us, you can learn more by going to our website. And in addition to this wonderful event, there's plenty more going on any given day. We actually have our podcast tomorrow, so you can check out a little bit more about what we do on Tuesday mornings, either it be our community coffees or a podcast. And if you're looking for a job and you just so happen to be there, or you're also looking to hire people, we have a resume distributor on our website. You can go there and post if you're looking for a job, post your resume out. It goes to all of our members. It goes to our Slack channel. Our members can go and search resumes, all on our website, techhubsouthflorida.org. Do also take a chance to join our Slack channel, techhubsouthflorida.org/Slack. If you're not there, you want to be. It is got 4,000 plus people in it. It is a great place to be. So make sure you do take some time and take a look at that today. And with that, I do want to get back to Dr. Jerald Dawkins, who is going to be speaking to us here tonight about cybersecurity. There are a few people that I know who are as brilliant on cybersecurity as this guy. I've heard him speak before. He is a charismatic guy. We were just talking about how last time I heard him spoke, we were actually sharing a drink together. It would be very nice to be doing that here this evening just as well. But in any event, Dr. Dawkins, thank you so much for joining us today, and you may take it away, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And yeah, I look forward to the day that I can be on West Palm and sipping on a little old-fashioned, a smoked old-fashioned. So thank you. Yeah. Here, let me pull up a slide. While I pull this up, let me just give a shout out to Ryan and Carrie Stamp. I know you guys are working with Roy and our company, and really appreciate everything that you're doing. Can you guys see my screen? Am I showing you? I think so. I don't know. I think I lost. There's Joe.
You're all set there. I'm just hiding myself.
Okay, no, perfect.
Yeah.
I was like, everybody left me. Now I can't see anybody. You got to stay on, Joe. I can only see you. No, so thank you to Ryan. Thank you for Joe, and thank you, Monica, for getting us all set up here. Man, it was great. You know, I think from my standpoint, being being kind of a tech company founder, being a current chief information security officer, like all this stuff is critically important to me. I love tech. I love tech companies. I love tech startups. So I actually did a startup company for an internet filtering company. I did some software development before I got into some cybersecurity stuff, and before I started True Digital Security. But one interesting thing about the software development community is we tend to be somewhat introverted. I remember going to grad school, and I was working on a Ph.D. and they wanted me to actually write a paper. I was like, I just want to write code. I don't want to write a paper. I don't want to write a book. I don't want to interface with people. So I will tell you that speaking from that standpoint, networking and getting involved in a community such as this is critically important, because you need those peers. You need those peers to reach out to and ask questions to, and part of that is really behind my talk today. It's cybersecurity is a team sport. It's what is cybersecurity today, and how has it changed over the years. I think back about my early days in cybersecurity, and I was a young Ph.D. candidate. Working in academics and doing research for the government, and doing some consulting on the side for corporations. And back then, and not to make fun of anybody from Cisco, but there was a Cisco commercial that was pretty prevalent, and it was this old white-haired guy that was like coming downstairs, and he's like, "Where's the security?" And this Indian guy came out of the back and said, security's in the blinky box, and the blinky thing. And the white guy says, you mean the blinky box? And he's like, yeah, the blinky box. Security's in the blinky box. And he's like, that's too much mumbo jumbo. And he walks off. And that's how my cybersecurity started. It was like you had executives that really didn't understand much about cybersecurity. You had a seemingly knowledgeable, like technical people that really didn't know how to communicate all the intricate details of security and technology because it's very complex. And then you have vendors. You know, vendors are sometimes the worst. I sometimes make fun of my own industry because sometimes I think we sell on fear and uncertainty and doubt, this concept of FUD. And I think ultimately it distracts from what the conversation really needs to be around. So people want to talk about, you know, hacking biometric devices or IoT devices or being able to jump memory allocations and virtual machines and all this other kind of crazy stuff. And yes, I think from one standpoint, I think that is an issue and we need to review it as an industry and need to talk about it. We need to talk about being able to take over a car and drive it. But also there's bigger challenges and there's fundamental challenges. And I put up the Starbucks drink. It's like, you know, am I really wanting to talk about being able to hack my pacemaker, or what's going to kill me first? Hacking my pacemaker or drinking too much of this 600-calorie Starbucks drink that I have? So the reality is sometimes, you know, it's fun to talk about those cool, sexy things that we hear about in the cybersecurity world, but the things that actually we need to focus on and we need to think about are those fundamental problems. You know, my friend from Gartner sent me a presentation. I picked out a couple of really key things that I think are really pertinent in today's world, especially in light of some of the pandemic stuff that's going on. You know, you look at people ask me all the time, you know, what's kind of changed in this pandemic, and I heard from some of you all in our little breakout sessions that, you know, one of the main things is I love working from home. I want to work from home. This has been great, and I think for the most part there's a lot of businesses out there that before this pandemic maybe were hesitant about work from home. Maybe those organizations were less critical on technology, or they were more critical on technology. They were less apt to use virtual meeting space and do certain things, or use, God forbid, cloud services and all these other things. So, but now you look at it, it's like it's being embraced. In fact, I think if you go back in time, like, man, there could have been no better point in history to have a pandemic. You know, not to make light of this bad situation, but man, like, we as a country, as a community, as a tech community, we responded, and we responded in the sense that, you know, from schools to businesses, we were resilient, and I think that should be applauded. But at the same rate, we can't just look at it as being just a pure technical. And I think that's one thing that I've taken away from a lot of things in my experience in the tech field, is this not just about the tech. You know, the Gartner had some documentation, and the two big things that I really pulled from it was, you know, we're evolving from building and operating towards facilitating, enabling, ensuring. So in other words, you know, I think about, you know, the use of cloud services and software as a service and managed services and all these things. We need to, we're leveraging more and more. Before it was build, operate internally, keep this all within our purview. And now it's, you know, I am relying on these other people. I'm going to use Zoom. I'm going to use AirMeet. I'm going to use like Zoom. I'm going to use all these different services because it enables me to better operate my company. But that doesn't mean that just because I outsource it to Microsoft or I give my security operations center to somebody that I'm out of the game. No, you just kind of shift your position. You're changing your role. You know, you're changing your role to facilitating, enabling, ensuring. You got to validate. And I'll talk about more of that in a moment. The other interesting thing from my perspective, what this whole pandemic has done is in terms of just the pure talent of resources. You know, we're shifting. For the longest time, it was all about, you know, networking and classical security architectures. And now the world is shifting, and perimeters, these defined perimeters. And now the world is shifting to, all right, I don't have this like solid perimeter. You know, I've got these people that are working all over the place, at home, in coffee shops. I've got, you know, mobile devices. I got laptops. I got bring your own devices. I got cloud services. And if anybody's been playing with Microsoft, I mean, Microsoft is making changes constantly. No longer are you waiting for the latest update. You get it immediately within Microsoft, and that's kind of the beauty of cloud services. And so they're constantly creating new features and abilities and capabilities. And it's like, how do I leverage those to support my security program? How do I leverage those to support my business? And thus the interesting thing from my perspective of being the Chief Information Security Officer of a managed security service provider. You know, we have clients that leverage Outlook, that leverage AWS, that leverage, you know, a lot of different cloud solutions. And it's like, how are we doing vendor management against them? How do I know what security parameters they do? And we support tech companies. We love tech companies, you know, especially in the regulated technology industry. So you have these tech companies that are trying to make their way in the healthcare world, in the financial world, you know, health tech, fintech, energy tech, you name it, tech. You know, they're trying to make their way, but at the same rate, they're being pushed by regulations and compliance, high trust, or you know, or GDPR, or the emerging CMMC. And so this is why it's really fun from my perspective to really dive in and understand some of the complexities that regulations play, how those are translated to technology, and how cloud services or how those other things can kind of interplay. I say all this because, you know, whenever you're looking at, you know, hiring people, like I thought this was really powerful. You cannot hire you just can't hire people. You know, you must develop them to a great extent. You know, NASA had looked, if NASA had looked for experienced moonwalkers in 1969, they would have never landed on the moon. And I think this is really true in the cybersecurity space. You know, some people are like, I need to build a cybersecurity program. We got to address this, and I'm looking. But from my perspective, those are red flags that I start waving. You know, these are complex issues that require a team approach to solving them. It's not just technology that solves the problem. You know, it's not just legal that solves the problem. It's a combination of all of us together. You know, the vendors that we rely on are you know, Microsoft plays a role in this. To True Digital Security and how we deliver services to our customers, that plays a role. How we interact with our various clients, you know, that comes into play. You know, you got legal, you got business aspect. We have to elevate what security is, what IT is, to not just a technical thing. And I think from my standpoint, from a pandemic standpoint, I think that's exactly what has happened. You know, I think technology's kind of raised that bar. The business is starting to see, you know, there's something to say for this technology thing. So if you dissect this a little bit more, I think one thing that's really changed over the time, and you're going to see more and more of this, and in the government, I saw this years ago, and we called them RTMs, or Requirement Traceability Matrix, and that's what we called it back then. In the commercial sector, I think early on I saw it more so with the payment card industry, which is in the credit card, and in the payment card industry, it was referred to as implementation guide. So it was like you had a tech company that was trying to sell a product to the market, and the entity they were selling to had a regulatory requirement. And so I want to use your point of sale system, but at the same rate, I have to adhere to the payment card industry. So how does implementing your technology support that effort? And that's fundamentally the question that you have. It's like, how does that support that effort? And the answer was in communication. We have to be better at communicating. We have to be better at discussing with the people that are using our product where the gap is between where we play and where you play. And so I say it funny because it's like, mind the gap. I'm thinking of going over to Europe and England, and you're trying to get on the subway over there, and it's like, mind the gap, and very much so. It's like, your responsibility is clear. It's like, I'm running a business. I'm going to pick on Microsoft, but I'm going to use Microsoft, O365 or M365 now. And Microsoft is certainly going to do things, because now you don't have to buy a physical device anymore, and you don't have to pay for hardware. So clearly I have no responsibility. Well, that's not true. If you were to ask me about, even like 5-6 years ago, whether you could move to the cloud and be secure and run a regulated technology business, I would have kind of been on the fence. I'd be like, it's possible, but Microsoft hasn't been forthcoming with regard to their security, and Amazon hasn't been forthcoming with regard to their security. But what changed? Well, what changed was, obviously money changed. The government said, hey, we're gonna be investing, and the government didn't trust Microsoft or Amazon until they produced this documentation. And what they ended up doing was producing this documentation that basically said, hey, here's exactly what we are doing as a vendor. And more importantly, here's what your responsibility is if you want to use us to support that. And that's what I say the gap is. So that gap is something that you as an organization have to address. So this is where that team sport comes in, right? Joe is talking about playing soccer, and I was a soccer player, and I love soccer, but you don't take the field as a single person. You'll lose every time. And even more so, you don't take the field without any kind of strategy. Like, everybody just put the ball in the back of the goal, in the back of the net. Okay, well, which net am I scoring on? Which direction are we going? And what position are you going to play? And so typically, whenever you take a soccer field, you have defense, you have midfielders, you have forwards. You play your role. And I think in a very similar respect, that's the way technology is driving. We've got to know what our role is. We have to be able to communicate that role to the other players that are on our team in order to win the game. And that's it. That's cybersecurity in today's world. It's being able to articulate where you're at, what you deliver, how you deliver it, and what your customer needs. For True Digital Security, for example, how does that play out? Well, for True, one is, True gets a SOC 2. So one is that we're audited by a third party. So we have third party validation that what we're saying is accurate and true. So that goes back to my previous statement on ensuring, facilitate, ensure. You need to make sure that you're working with people that are capable of validating that. I think third-party validation is key. Another thing that True does is we make sure that we articulate what we do, and more importantly, what we don't do, where you need to play, where your responsibilities lie. And you need to do that not just with like a vendor like True, but you need to do that with all of your vendors, because in this world, it's becoming more and more complex in terms of the services we're using or the suppliers that we're leveraging and how this works. So how does this play out in a real world scenario? From my standpoint, it's really running a security program. Like, people want to jump to the bottom. People always want to jump to the tools. They want to talk about, vulnerability scanning, pen testing. They want to talk about firewalls. They want to talk about MDR. They want to talk about SIEM and SOC and all the various tool sets. There was an RSA report that kicked out, and they said an average small business, small, uses 30 to 40 different tools. A medium size, it jumps up to 80 to 100. And then a large enterprise uses over 130 tools. That's a whole lot of tools. You know, that's a whole lot of things to coordinate and manage from an operational, from a tool perspective, let alone to operationalize them. So oftentimes when I go into organizations, they typically, sometimes they have the tools. The number of times that I've been in large corporations and they have the fanciest tools, it's like they pick the magic quadrant and they circle the upper right quadrant. They say, give me one of each of those, and they got the tools. But where they always fail is in operationalizing those tools. How do those tools work together? How do those services work together? How do my service providers work together? How does my security team interface with my audit team, interface with my IT team? You know, and it's all those aspects of how do you operationalize those things. I think that's the key. So if you're a, you know, I know that there's some students on the line, and you know, you might be thinking about from a development standpoint, and that's great. There's a lot of need and roles to run those development. But even if you're at that level, think about that next level. Think about, okay, I know what my role is, but how does my role impact the broader role? You know, in software development, it's object-oriented. You learn about object-oriented programming, and you learn about abstraction, and you learn about how you can develop like deep, but you abstract out, and that's the only way that you can build complex applications. If it wasn't for object-oriented programming, if it wasn't for levels of abstraction, it'd be very difficult to build really big, complex programs. Yes, fundamentally, I need to write this, you know, bin sorting algorithm or whatever the algorithm is that I need to execute, but I have to bring it up in order to make it useful. In a similar way, cybersecurity is that exact same way. Yes, I need those discrete pieces. You know, I do need to do the vulnerability scanning, but from an organizational standpoint, from a compliance standpoint, doing the vulnerability scan, that's the requirement. So if you get audited, if you're dealing with an OCR breach notification, if you're dealing with anything from that standpoint, it's like, great, you've got a firewall, but who's watching the firewall? Who's managing the firewall? Who's managing the SIM? And I think, you know, in seeing kind of the emergence of compliance and that type of thing, that's where that play is. You know, there's a reason why when you're looking at security, a big buzzword right now is SOAR, security, orchestration, automation, and response. It's because we've got plenty of tools. Our problem is we haven't orchestrated the tools together. That's the operational piece. And the third layer, from my perspective, is a governance piece. You've got to be able to manage, you got to be able to govern all this stuff. You have to be able to set a goal for your cybersecurity program. Like, why are you operationalizing this? What is your goal? And that leads me to my final thing. And from my standpoint, I don't know how many pilots are in the, but this is like my best analogy. I'm a pilot. I love to fly small planes. But one of the biggest, and when I started flying, it was all steam gauges, right? It was like VORs, and it was classical navigation, and that's when I learned. And then they started allowing more and more GPSs in the cockpit, or it started becoming more reasonable for smaller planes to get GPS in the cockpit. And man, you talk about change your life, right? It's like I'm going from like tuning radios and like pointing to vectors to actually having an iPhone app and knowing exactly where I am at in the world and the altitude based on GPS satellites. And I think from the standpoint of you know, GPS is a lot like cybersecurity from the standpoint of security as a team sport. It's like, think about it. How does GPS work? You have a number of satellites in the air, right? And the way GPS works is, you're receiving all those satellite signals, and then you have a computer that's doing the triangulation and trying to determine where you're at based on how far away I am from these satellites. So if you're flying an airplane and all you see is one satellite, how big of an area do you think that covers? Do I know where I'm at? Well, I know I could be in North America because I see the satellite, but North America is a pretty big place. So let me introduce another satellite. If I got two satellites, I can pinpoint the location. I was like, okay, now I can get a little bit more precise in terms of, I'm not just in North America. Now I know I'm in America, and in particular, the state of Florida, right? And it's like, okay, now bring in a third one. Ooh, now I can get a little bit more precise. Bring in a fourth one, bring in a fifth one. The more satellites I have, the more pinpoint of a location I can provide until I'm very specific in my point. So that's a risk assessment. That's a risk assessment from an IT perspective. From an IT perspective, it's like, I'm not gonna lie, if you got a startup company, you got zero revenue, you got no customers, what kind of security perspective do you need? Like one satellite might be good enough. I'm trying to test this out, right? I'm going to get an AWS account, and I'm going to roll up a AWS instance, and I'm going to deploy the system. You're going to quickly get to the point where you're flying around in a 747, and you've got passengers in the plane. Do you just want one satellite, or do you need 5 satellites? Well, those satellites are people that are part of your team. So at first, you might, your security person might be a software developer. Your security person might be an IT engineer. From my standpoint, it's like, that might be good enough, but you need to assess your risk, and you need to bring in more team players, because the more team players you have, the more honed in you can get on exactly what your cybersecurity perspective is. And that cybersecurity perspective is it could be a managed security services firm like True. It could be a software engineer. It could be legal counsel. It could be HR. It could be a lot of different players that are all looking at the space from a different angle, that are pinpointing that location from a risk perspective. So I want to leave you with this. I see Joe jumped on, so that probably tells me that I'm running out of time. But as you're entering this space, know that I'm excited. It's great space. It's an exciting space. There's a tremendous amount of opportunity, especially in light of today's world with emerging technology. There's a reason why regulations exist. As much as I don't like regulations, I respect regulations. I understand the basis of the regulations. You go back to flight. There's a reason why the FAA is so involved in airline, and it's because of the amount of safe travel that we have in our and the reliance we can have in our aviation industry. And in a similar way, we're talking about tech, and tech is more and more important to today's society. And so from that standpoint, you have an obligation to protect your client's information. You have an obligation to protect your investment, to protect your company's network. And it's like, and how much, that's a risk decision that you need to make based on all the parameters, but it's an exercise you need to go through. And then I would encourage to seek out multiple players, like seek out those players. And the red flag would be the people that say, oh, it's security, there's nothing to worry about here, I got you. That's when you start to raise a red flag. That's when you start asking me real questions. Joe, I'll shut up. I can keep going. Jerry told me I had a hard stop.
Jerry, no, you're fine. For those that have never met Jerry in person, he is quite the passionate individual, if that wasn't clearly shown. But Jerry, I do want to hit on too the fact all this is super interesting, but you've also spent a lot of time investing in the next generation as well, and making sure that you invested in higher education too. Am I right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've invested pretty heavily in higher education, both in terms of supporting our local communities, South Florida and Oklahoma. We support. I'm pretty active in the research area, so we actively go out and get research funding, and we have a pretty successful internship program where we bring. Back to my previous statement about the NASA. I love that quote. I'm going to probably use that multiple times, but it's like, if NASA were looking for experienced moonwalkers, we wouldn't be walking on the moon. And the reality is that's what I'm looking for. That's what we need at True Digital. We're asking people to do things that haven't been done before, and it's really hard to find that experience. So therefore, it's easier to grow that talent and bring that talent along and expose that talent. So we've been really successful in a strong internship program to seed our hiring needs and our growth potential, and a lot of that has to do with outreach and making sure that we're aligned with universities and supporting that mission.
Very good. So just curious, if anyone has any questions, we only have a few minutes because we're over. Feel free to put them in chat.
I'm sorry.
No, you're totally, Jerry, you're fine. You're good. Real quick, I mean, you talk about cybersecurity from a team aspect. Do you find that there's a lot of hourly service-based companies that work in between maybe some of your other clients, and they don't really see it like that? They're engaged with that business, but they're not taking the same cybersecurity priorities into account as that other business.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, and this is only because of my recent experience. I mentioned, I forget where I mentioned it, but I was in the process of building a new home, right? And it's like there's a lot of people that it takes to build a house, the framer, the plumber, the electrician, like all these people have a role in building a house. And if you ask any of them, they all have an opinion about the other trades. A plumber has an opinion about the framer. The framer has an opinion about the electricians. And they all have a slightly different perspective on the same thing. But at the same rate, you're just trying to build a house, right?
Yeah.
And I'm trying to build the best house that I can with the most efficient. So there's certainly some players out there that they'll just frame without any recollection of a plumber or an electrician, and they cause problems. And then you have some that try to be an electrician, but they're trying to give advice about plumbing. And so it's like navigating the space. And I think that's one of the problems in the cybersecurity is it's even in that space, it's not as well defined as plumbing and electrician. Like this is emerging space. So like the number of players that I see, you can't be in technology without talking about security, period. So everybody's in the security space. And my reaction is absolutely, you need to be in the security space. As a software developer, I need you to be in the security space. I need you to be thinking about security. And if you aren't, then that's a problem. And that's a problem for me. Not that I'm thinking you're going to impact my business at all. It's that I need you to develop securely. So I need you to understand OWASP, OWASP top 10. I need you to understand what my needs are from a compliance standpoint and my needs from a logging perspective, because I think that's going to impact your security, your software development lifecycle, and it's going to enable my security posture. So we got to be able to work together. We got to be able to have these conversations.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jerry. For those that want to learn more, you can search True Digital Security on Google. I think it's just TrueDigitalSecurity.com too as well, right?
Yeah, TrueDigitalSecurity.com.
TrueDigitalSecurity.com. Based, headquartered right here in South Florida. Thank you, Jerry, and thank you very much to Rory, as CEO, as well, for being members of Tech Hub South Florida and for supporting us for a number of years now. Check them out if you do have any questions, if you might want to be a client of theirs and take advantage of some of their services. But thank you for everybody who tuned in tonight. It's Monday. It's now 6:40. We have a really great week ahead of us here at Tech Hub South Florida. Wishing everybody a really amazing week on your own as well. Jerry, we do have to catch up offline because I got my first flying lesson this weekend as well.
Hey.
So I will give you. I will give you a
we'll grab drinks after we go fly.
There we go.
That's my first advice.
Sounds like a plan. Everybody, you enjoy the rest of your Monday, and look forward to seeing you at another Tech Talk again in the future. See you, everybody.
Appreciate you.